All right, let's talk about the air we breathe. It's full of stuff we can't see, tiny viruses, bacteria, even fungi. Today, we're going to demystify how these things travel through the air. Because let's face it, understanding the threat is the very first step in protecting ourselves.
So picture this. You're in a room, someone coughs. We've all had that moment of wondering, just how long do those germs hang around? A few seconds? Maybe a few minutes? Well, the answer is, it's a lot more complicated than you'd think, and that complexity has led to so much confusion. See, every single time we breathe, talk, or cough, we're releasing this little cloud of particles. Now, if someone's sick, that cloud is carrying tiny infectious hitchhikers. And the smallest of these, the aerosols, they don't just drop to the floor. No, they can linger, just floating there, drifting around for a really long time. To get a handle on that risk, we first have to unpack some pretty old and confusing rules.
To really understand where the science is today, we have to look back at the rules that guided public health for decades. And honestly, these rules created a very confusing picture.
For the longest time, the official thinking was split into these two super neat, tidy boxes. On one side, you had droplets. These were thought of as big, heavy particles that acted like tiny cannonballs. They fly a few feet and then drop. So the defense was simple. Wash your hands, clean surfaces. Then on the other side, you had airborne. This was a special category for tiny particles that could float for hours and travel long distances, requiring things like special ventilation and N95 masks. And the lines separating these two worlds?
It all came down to this one single number, 5 micrometers. That was it, the magic dividing line. If a particle was bigger than 5 micrometers, it was a droplet. If it was smaller, it was airborne. But this super rigid rule created a massive problem, because in the real world, people in different fields were using the exact same words to mean completely different things. Okay, now this slide right here, this is the key to the whole puzzle. It shows you exactly where all the confusion came from. Look at this. When a doctor says airborne, they're thinking of a rare, long-distance disease like measles. But to an aerosol scientist, hey, anything floating in the air is airborne. And then you got us, the general public. We hear aerosol and we think hairspray. This total disconnect in language is why the official advices often seem so contradictory. We were all basically arguing about definitions instead of focusing on the actual physics.
So let's just set those confusing terms aside for a minute. Let's look at the actual rogues gallery, the diseases that can, in fact, travel through the air.
And this isn't just about 1 or 2 diseases. I mean, the list is long and it's incredibly diverse. You've got viruses we all know like measles, chickenpox, and the flu. Then you have bacteria like tuberculosis, the classic example of an airborne disease. And believe it or not, even some fungi like aspergillosis, whose spores can get kicked up into the air. But here's the thing. Not all of these are created equal when it comes to how easily they spread.
This chart is a fantastic way to see that difference. It uses something called the R0 value. All that means is it's the average number of people one sick person will infect in a population with no immunity. Now look at measles. It's off the charts. One person can infect up to 18 others. Compare that to seasonal flu, which is way lower. It just goes to show you how wide the spectrum of contagiousness really is.
Okay, so we have all these different germs floating around, but how do they actually behave once they're in the air? Well, that all comes down to the physics of how they're transmitted.
It really boils down to 2 main situations. The most common one is short range. Just being physically close to someone who's sick and breathing in the concentrated cloud of particles they're exhaling. But the second one, that's what leads to those super spreader events. That's shared room transmission. It happens when you're in an enclosed space with bad ventilation, and those infectious aerosols have just been building up in the air over time.
But it's not just about how close you are. The environment itself plays a huge part. For example, some viruses, like the flu, seem to do better in cold conditions. Sunlight is a great natural disinfectant. Its UV rays can literally shred viruses and bacteria. Humidity can change how long the particles float around. And, of course, the big one, ventilation. Good airflow can clear a room out, while bad airflow can let germs just linger indefinitely.
Okay, so we know how this all works. Now for the most important part, right? What can we actually do about it? How do we fight back against these invisible threats?
Well, the best approach isn't just one single thing. It's about using layers of defense, what experts call a hierarchy of controls. Think of it like a pyramid. At the very top, you have big engineering solutions that protect everyone. And at the bottom, you have personal actions. The key is that all these layers have to work together.
So here are the key steps in that layered defense. Number 1, getting vaccinated for diseases like measles and the flu is an absolute game changer.
It's your primary defense. And then there's improving ventilation, just getting fresh air circulating. You can also use air filtration, like HEPA filters, which literally pull the infectious particles out of the air. Of course, wearing a good, well-fitted mask reduces what you breathe in and what you breathe out. And finally, good old-fashioned hygiene. Washing your hands, covering your coughs, it's still a really important piece of the puzzle.
And you know, sometimes the simplest advice is the best. This quote really says it all. Just opening a window is one of the most powerful and easiest things you can do. It's a fantastic reminder that we all have some control over the air we breathe.
So, if those old, rigid rules were so confusing and didn't really line up with the science, where are we heading now? How do we finally get some clarity on all of this?
This is the path forward. The World Health Organization is now pushing for a new, unifying term: transmission through the air. Simple, right? It gets rid of that arbitrary 5-micron line. It just acknowledges the reality. Infectious particles of all sizes can spread through the air, both when you're close to someone and when you're farther away. It's a common-sense approach that finally gets the language to match the physics.
And really, that brings us to the final thought. The air around us. It connects every single one of us. It doesn't care about walls or borders. So protecting it isn't just a personal job. It's a collective one. It means we have to start thinking about our shared spaces, our schools, our offices, our homes, as environments we can actively make safer and healthier for everyone. The question really isn't if diseases travel through the air anymore. The question now is, what are we going to do about it, together?